Toxic people don't just hurt you with what they say, they hurt you with what they take. Your peace, your clarity, your sense of self. You don't always see it at first because their damage is slow, calculated. One day you're confident, calm, moving forward. The next you're walking on eggshells, second-guessing your worth, doubting your instincts. And the worst part? You start thinking it's your fault. That if you had just loved harder, been more patient, kept the peace longer, they would have changed. But toxic people don't change for kindness. They feed on it. They use it as proof they can get away with more. You try to fix them, and in the process, they start breaking you. That's how toxicity works. It doesn't storm in violently. It creeps in subtly. It wraps itself in history, in guilt, in emotional hooks that make you stay even when your soul is begging you to leave. This isn't just about relationships. This is about friendships, families, even workplaces. Anywhere someone learns they can manipulate you, they will. And if you don't learn how to deal with it, their chaos becomes your personality. You become reactive, bitter, distrustful. Not because that's who you are, but because they taught you to survive that way. But it ends now. Not with hatred, not with revenge, but with awareness, with power, with the unshakable calm of someone who sees clearly, sets boundaries, and no longer plays the game. This is how you deal with toxic people, and this is how you take your life back. Toxic people rarely come at you with obvious weapons. They use confusion, guilt, and emotional chaos as their tools of control. They thrive in uncertainty, because when your mind is clouded, they get to write the script. One day they praise you, the next they ignore you. One minute they're their everything, the next you're walking on eggshells wondering what you did wrong. That's not a coincidence. It's a calculated loop to keep you chasing validation. When they see you stable, confident, and emotionally clear, they feel threatened. So they destabilize you, subtly, quietly, but with surgical precision. They shift the blame, twist your words, gaslight you until you question your memory. They don't want connection, they want control. And the more you explain yourself, the more they learn how to twist your truth. You start shrinking, trying to avoid conflict. You let things slide, thinking it's not worth the fight. But every time you do that, they grow stronger. Not because they're powerful, but because you forgot that you are. The moment you realize this pattern, you take your power back. You stop trying to fix the unfixable. You stop trying to find logic in manipulation. You start creating clarity where they've been feeding on chaos. Because when a toxic person can no longer confuse you, they can no longer control you. Guilt is the currency of toxic people. It's how they keep you emotionally indebted, stuck in cycles of over-explaining, over-giving, and over-apologizing for things that were never your fault. They know how to twist the truth just enough to make you second-guess your intentions, your boundaries, your very identity. If you try to set a limit, they make you feel cruel. If you take space, they call you selfish. If you speak the truth, they label you dramatic, sensitive, ungrateful. And because you're someone with empathy, with a conscience, you fall into their trap. You start feeling guilty for simply protecting yourself. That guilt is what keeps the hook in your chest. That guilt is why you stay longer than you should, argue when you should walk away, give when you should withhold, and soften when you should stand firm. But here's the truth. You are not cruel for setting boundaries. You are not selfish for protecting your energy. You are not heartless for choosing peace over chaos. Toxic people manipulate through emotional warfare. They make you feel the villain for no longer playing the role of their emotional caretaker. And the moment you stop feeding them guilt, they starve, they panic, they lash out, because their power has always depended on your self-doubt. But you don't owe them your peace. You don't owe them a stage to act out their chaos. You owe yourself clarity, strength, freedom. And that starts the second you stop letting guilt run the show. Toxic people don't just lie with words, they lie with silence, with half-truths, with revisionist memory that paints them as the victim, no matter how destructive their actions were. They'll tell you it didn't happen the way you remember, that you're too sensitive, that you misunderstood. And when you bring up facts, they twist the frame. Suddenly you're the one overreacting, holding grudges, starting drama. This is gaslighting in its most insidious form, the slow erosion of your inner compass. You begin to doubt what you saw, what you felt, what you knew. You rewrite your memories just to make peace with someone who thrives on conflict. But listen closely. Confusion is not a symptom of love. It's a weapon of control. The more uncertain you become about your reality, the easier it is for them to mold it. That's why you must rebuild your internal authority. You must remember that your body never lies. When it felt off, it was off. When you cried in silence while pretending to be okay, that pain was real. When you walked on eggshells just to keep them calm, that fear was valid. You don't need permission to trust your gut. You don't need consensus to validate your memory. If someone makes you feel insane for expressing hurt, it's not love, it's manipulation. And the longer you deny your truth for their comfort, the more you lose yourself. So reclaim your mind. Hold the memory in place. Don't let them rewrite your story to suit their image. Your truth is not up for debate. It is your anchor. And in a world that tries to drown you in doubt, holding on to it is the most radical form of power. One of the most vicious traits of a toxic person is their ability to deplete you emotionally, then act as if your exhaustion is the problem. They come to you with chaos, mood swings, passive-aggressive digs, selfish needs wrapped in victimhood, and they expect you to absorb it all, to be the fixer, the therapist, the emotional punching bag. You give them grace again and again. You forgive things they never apologize for. You excuse behavior you would never accept from anyone else. And little by little, the light in you dims. Your peace becomes their playground. But when you start to slow down, when the smile fades, the replies get shorter, or your energy dips, they suddenly flip the narrative. You've changed. You're distant. Why are you so cold? As if your emotional burnout is a betrayal. As if you owe them eternal fuel with no return. This is the illusion they build, that love is measured by how much you can tolerate, how much you can carry, how much you can lose without complaint. But that's not love. That's exploitation. Real connection replenishes you, not drains you. Real love nourishes your spirit, not empties it out. And here's the truth most people don't want to face. If someone only loves the version of you that gives endlessly without needing anything in return, they don't love you. They love the supply. They love the role you play in their emotional theater. The antidote is not revenge, it's refusal. Refusing to shrink yourself to keep someone comfortable. Refusing to explain why you're tired to someone who made you that way. Refusing to be blamed for your burnout when it was their chaos that lit the fire. Set a boundary not because you hate them, but because you finally decided to love yourself.
A toxic person doesn't build love through connection. They build it through guilt. They blur the line between caring and controlling so masterfully that you start to believe emotional discomfort means emotional depth. That if you feel bad walking away, it must mean you care. But guilt is not love. It's a weapon, and toxic people know how to sharpen it well. They'll use phrases like, "after everything I've done for you," or "no one else would put up with you," or "you're so ungrateful," to turn your boundaries into betrayal. They don't want your freedom. They want your loyalty, even if it comes at the cost of your peace. And if you're someone who grew up learning that love must be earned through sacrifice or self-abandonment, you'll fall right into the trap. You'll stay not because you feel connected, but because you feel obligated. You'll keep giving more just to ease the guilt they implanted in you. But here's the hard truth. Anyone who makes you feel guilty for protecting your peace doesn't value you. They value your control over you. True love doesn't punish distance. It respects space. It doesn't twist your no into a rejection. It listens. So when someone starts guilt-tripping you for needing time, rest, or silence, watch closely. That's not your heart speaking. That's conditioning. That's emotional blackmail dressed as intimacy. And the only way out is to break the association. Learn to sit with discomfort without interpreting it as cruelty. Learn to let people feel disappointed without making it your job to fix it. The more you detach from guilt, the closer you get to real freedom. Because love built on guilt is just bondage. And one day, you'll realize that saving yourself from it wasn't selfish. It was sacred. A toxic person cannot survive in peace. Stillness exposes them. Silence reveals them. The absence of drama makes them restless, because without something to control, provoke, or manipulate, they start to lose their grip, not just on you, but on themselves. They'll pick fights out of nowhere, distort your words, and rewrite events to stir chaos, not always with shouting, but often with subtle sabotage, cold shoulders, passive-aggressive digs, strategic forgetfulness, and emotional withdrawal when you don't behave the way they want. It's not accidental. It's a nervous system wired for instability. And if you're not careful, you'll get pulled into their storm thinking you're the one who needs to fix it. You'll find yourself explaining your tone, defending your intentions, walking on eggshells, and over-explaining simple truths while they twist your reactions into proof that you're the problem. That's the trap. They provoke your response and then blame you for having one. So how do you escape it? You starve the chaos. You stop engaging in arguments designed to confuse, not resolve. You stop justifying your boundaries as if they're up for debate. You stop dancing in circles around someone who only feels powerful when you're off balance. The most powerful move is indifference. Not anger, not revenge, just calm, unwavering presence. When you don't rise to their bait, when you don't let their dysfunction become your script, you take away their only weapon, your attention. They can't control someone who won't play. And in time, your peace becomes so uncomfortable for them, they either have to evolve or leave. Let them. Because the cost of keeping them is your sanity. And no connection, no matter how deep it once felt, is worth sacrificing your peace to keep someone else's chaos alive. One of the most disorienting parts of dealing with a toxic person is what happens when you finally pull away, when you go quiet, reclaim your power, and stop dancing to the tune they kept changing. At first, they panic. Then they pretend not to. But underneath the mask is a rising sense of guilt. The guilt of knowing they drained someone who only wanted connection. But here's the truth. Toxic people don't sit in guilt for long. Guilt requires introspection, growth, accountability, and most of them aren't ready to face that mirror. So instead, they turn guilt into blame. It's not that they hurt you, it's that you were too sensitive. It's not that they manipulated, it's that you were hard to handle. They rewrite the story to protect the fragile illusion that they're still in control. They'll tell others you abandoned them, that you changed, that you were never really there for them, all while ignoring the dozens of times you stayed, explained, forgave, and gave chances they never earned. And if you're not careful, that narrative can infect your mind too. You start questioning yourself. Was I too cold? Did I overreact? Maybe I wasn't patient enough. That's the final test, because toxic people don't just damage you while you're with them. They leave fingerprints on your self-worth even after they're gone. So how do you protect yourself? You remember. Not the fake peace, not the good days they used to reel you back in, but the exhaustion, the confusion, the way your body tensed before every interaction. You remember the truth of what it felt like to love someone who punished you for not being perfect. That memory becomes your armor. That clarity becomes your shield. And that version of you who finally said enough, you honor them. You don't betray their strength by letting someone else's rewritten story overwrite your reality. You don't let their guilt become your burden. You walk forward with the kind of peace only survivors understand. The quiet, sacred kind that comes from knowing you chose yourself. The real victory over a toxic person is not found in revenge, exposure, or proving them wrong. It's found in one quiet moment, when you wake up and realize you don't need them anymore. Not their validation, not their apology, not their attention. Nothing. Because they can no longer feed on you if you've stopped bleeding for them. You win the moment you no longer replay their words in your head. You win when your peace no longer depends on whether they text back. You win when their silence doesn't feel like punishment, just confirmation that your life is better without the noise. And here's the part they never expected. They thought you'd fall apart without them. They thought you'd chase, beg, spiral, or stay stuck in regret. They underestimated the moment your survival instinct would become self-respect. Because when you detach from a toxic person, you're not just leaving them behind, you're burying a version of yourself that tolerated less. And that's what terrifies them. That their grip is gone, that their chaos no longer pulls you back, that you're no longer accessible, no longer reactive, no longer the same person they could play emotional puppeteer with. You become unreachable, not out of spite, but out of evolution. Not because you hate them, but because you finally love yourself enough to walk away. The final form of healing is not needing closure. It's not waiting for karma. It's rising so high they can't even reach the version of you they helped break. It's becoming so deeply rooted in peace that chaos can't seduce you anymore. They'll test it, maybe even come back to see if the old you is still there. Smile. Let them knock on the door of your past while you live in the house of your future. You don't owe them a response. Just let your silence be the echo of your growth. That's how you win. With grace, with boundaries, with peace that doesn't shake when ghosts of the past come knocking.